All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that folks could join us today for our July Housing Facility Services Committee. We are also, as we have for the previous few months, we're going to continue to do this roundtable style. So we will have a couple of updates from our subcommittees, but the primary use of our time will just be some conversation about the various topics that folks have submitted for discussion. I do want to make sure that I draw folks' attention to the chat so that folks can use that to answer questions and share information as well. We'll go ahead and a couple of other things. I do want to make sure I direct folks' attention to the Akuho I website. If you have not taken a look at that to this point, there's some great online communities where folks are sharing resources, and some of the conversation that we have today is continuing. Additionally, there's some YouTube recordings and some COVID-19 resources. And on that note, I would encourage folks, as you are developing resources, a lot of the questions that are coming in are related to what protocols or procedures folks are putting in place. And so if that's something that you have drafts of and want to share, I think that would be great for our colleagues and our team members to see what's out there so that we are not all reinventing the wheel alone. There are a number of virtual roundtables taking place this week in addition to ours today. They're posted here on the screen, so I would encourage you to take a look. You can register for those on the Akuho I website, similar to what you did for our session today. I haven't introduced myself yet, but for those who I haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Teresa Frederick, and I currently serve as the Associate Director of Facilities Management at Missouri State. Joel, have you been able to jump on yet? Okay, I know Joel has a furniture delivery today, and so he wasn't sure if he'd be able to jump on with us. A couple of things about how today will work. This is going to be conversation-based. So this is not a traditional roundtable in that we're going to have a panel or presenters sharing some information. Really together as a group, we are making this roundtable happen, sharing what we are experiencing, things that we're doing on our campuses, kind of brainstorming back and forth on things we're working through. And so that's how this will happen. If you are able to use your webcam, that is appreciated. Oops, sorry, I got too excited. If you're able to use your webcam, that's appreciated. And then when you're not speaking, if you can mute, that helps for folks with some of the extra noise. If you do have something you want to share, if you want to raise your hand or use one of the reactions to help, I will try to catch that, and if Spencer can help me with that, that would be great as well. But again, that chat function is really great, so I would encourage folks to use that section there. Our conference committee, Jason Fraser Nash is our chair for that group. Their next meeting is August 14th, and this is the group that works with our fall conference. And so they work to get presenters and keynotes and things of that nature. So this is a very busy group for us, and they will have some updates for us at the next meeting. But if you are interested in working with this group, Jason's information is on the screen. So that you can reach out to him. Is there anyone from the conference committee that has additional updates that they would like to share at this time? Okay. Our next group is the Education and Resources Committee, led by Steve McKenzie. This group works on education opportunities for the overall housing facilities group. One of their initiatives is a best practices process, and so that is one of the things that this group is actively working on, is refining the best practices process and working to solicit some of those practices that are within the association so that we can capture that and share that with others. Steve's Contact information is on the screen for those that are interested in joining that work. You'll also note that the APA Institute fee waiver is something that this group coordinates. And so that institute that takes place twice a year, once in September and once in February, this group sponsors some fee waivers for folks to participate in that. There is an application for that fee waiver that is live on the Akuho I website for those that are interested. Steve, do you have additional updates that you would like to provide for your group?
Really not at this time. I'm going to try and get us a meeting scheduled for next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday. I thought I'd had one scheduled this week, but it is not on my calendar. But that's okay. So yeah, we will be working on the Institute fee waiver, and I haven't checked where APA stands yet for their September conference. I know that they did cancel their annual. They're going to do more of a same type thing, virtual, as our QOI is doing. So we'll work on the fee waiver. We will work on the best practices submission. I was able to find what had been done previously, so we can work on that. And I think also some discussion, and Teresa, I think you had brought this up earlier about we need to have some discussion or that surrounds about either, housing facilities versus campus facilities, and how to possibly integrate those two, because I know one of our colleagues has struggled with that as of recent.
Yeah. So if you have ideas for this group or want to join that work, you can reach out to Steve, and they're always looking for topics that are of interest related to presentations or roundtables. And so please feel free to connect with Steve. Thank you, Steve. Our committee for the recruitment of women and minorities in housing facilities is led by Dee Dee Knichtenberg. Dee Dee is unavailable today. Her group is continuing to work on a conference roundtable for women and minorities. They're also working on establishing a mentoring program for women in housing facilities. So if either of these are passion areas for you, I would encourage you to reach out to Dee Dee to join that work. And then in relation to Steve's group, Spencer has just shared with everyone the APA fee waiver application in the chat. And so if you or others on your campus would be interested in that, I would encourage you to share that link and that application with others.
That's great. Thank you, Spencer, for doing that.
All right, our communication committee is led by Joel. And so if you are interested in working with this group, some of the goals for that group is to increase communication in the online communities, specifically the housing facility community. And again, I want to put that plug in here. If you are working through protocols or you've got drafts or different signs that you guys are using on your campus, if you'd be willing to share those through that online community. And that's a big thing that we're hearing, is that folks are looking for guidelines and procedures and signage that others are using. So let's utilize that community to support each other. Sustainable Facilities Committee. We are continuing to look for someone who wants to take a lead in this area. If you would like to learn more about that, please reach out to me. Robin Gagnow is the leader for the Akuho I Sustainability Group. And so I've also provided Robin's contact information for those who would want to connect with him with that group. Their next meeting is actually right after this meeting. So you can jump over to this other Zoom meeting and join them for that conversation. Lots of great ideas continuing to happen in that area. Even though things look different in general, there's still good work taking place related to sustainability. They do also provide a newsletter, and the deadline for that next newsletter, if you would like to submit an article, is July 30th. So would love to see some articles from this group support that work. I've mentioned that we do have some leadership opportunities with the Sustainable Facilities Committee, but also to chair the Housing Facility Services Committee. So this overall group, we are looking for someone to take the reins of that for this upcoming year. And so if you are interested in that, please do let me know either of those positions. Folks would step into those roles in November, but we could start doing some shadowing now so that folks are ready to transition there. Okay, so consult with colleagues. This is where the bulk of our meeting happens and the roundtable happens. There were a lot of great submissions this month. We will do our best to get to as many as possible. And so again, if we don't get to them all, I apologize. We will meet again, but also use that chat as well. So, and then as the way we approached this is we took those and we tried to maybe group them by subject area or topic. And so we'll just go ahead and jump in. So the first thing that one of the things we want to talk about today are mask policies and guidelines. And I know that masks and face coverings really elicit a lot of feelings, but just want to talk about where people are in regards to their policies and implementation and what that means for your campus. So does anyone want to jump in and talk about what their campus has decided in relation to masks or face coverings? Novia, are you?
Yes.
Speaking? Great.
Hi, how are you? Yes, at Hofstra University, masks are required at all times if you are going to be outside in a public space. Residential students are required to wear their masks when they leave their rooms. They're required to wear them in all public spaces, as I indicated, such as dining halls and in classrooms.
Thank you, Novia.
You're welcome.
So are there any challenges related to your policies in development that folks want to talk about and get thoughts from others on? And while I throw that out, let's go ahead and jump into, if folks would jump into the chat, and let's see where folks are at with the masking or face covering policy on their campus. Are masks going to be required everywhere? Are they not required? Or is it only in certain areas? I'd like to see where folks are landing on that.
Hi, this is Whitney. I work at Augustana University. We're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and our policy looks very similar to Novia's. I think one of the questions we've had is anyone making like signage or working on communication for reminding students to wash their masks regularly and how to do that properly? So if that's if that's an egg anyone's cracked yet, that would be great.
So who can share maybe what education or signage that you're doing related to proper use and care of masks? So Whitney, we're definitely not experts on our campus, but I will say as we have issued them in the areas of issue, we have a handout posted that talks about the proper putting them on and taking them off and how you should store them if you're going to be able to use it multiple times. And so I'd be happy to share that if you want to shoot me an email. It's not a fancy sign. It was created by our Office of Emergency Management that we've been utilizing. And then a campus communication went out about what masks are going to be provided, because we're providing 2 per faculty and staff member, a cloth ones. And so those instructions went out with that communication as well. So great, thank you. I appreciate folks using that chat, and I would encourage folks to look at that if your campus is still working through things. It's great to be able to come to the table with examples of what other campuses are doing related to these guidelines, so that when you're asked, what are your peers doing? Then you've got some resources here in this chat as to what others are doing, and sometimes folks are sharing why. So it looks like A lot of folks are requiring them everywhere. There's some exceptions for personal spaces, which I'm assuming would be our resident rooms, or sometimes those individual staff offices. So great use of the chat there. Thank you. We actually haven't released our policy yet. We should see that come out in the next couple of weeks, but we've been slower in publicizing some decisions. Chad, thank you. Chad has shared some information on masks in a link in here. Doug Carter has shared that they've included a page from the CDC that talks about washing face coverings. So thank you, Doug. That's a great resource for folks on that signage piece. All right. Does anybody else want to ask any questions about masks or share some information? Okay, great. So we will go ahead and move to another topic. All right. Oh, sorry, I get going too fast. New products. So one of the things that folks asked about was what kind of new products are folks using in relation to things that are going on right now. So what specifically folks ask about any touchless products, and then also electrostatic sprayers were mentioned. So I'd like to open it up to see what folks are using related to touchless products, or if you want to jump in the chat and talk about what touchless products you're using. And I'm not 100% sure where folks were going with this. Perhaps it's, touchless soap dispensers and hand towel dispensers, or perhaps it's something else. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Now, Joseph, you have been a wealth of information the last couple of months. Do you want to share with the group what you are, do you mind speaking a little bit about your electrostatic sprayers?
The reason why we brought our electrostatic sprayers was we have buildings that do not have elevators, so it would be impossible to go up and down with the bulky 360 machines that we have. It started out to be a nemesis at the beginning because Clorox at one time was only filling orders for recalls that they had, and I had like 6 on order, so we had to wait till the middle of June to get those products back. So I don't know what the process is now. I'm fully I have all my products in place. So.
Great. Novia, thank you for sharing. Novia has shared that they're using temperature scanners that are contactless in all areas by the exits. Is that campus-wide, Novia, or is that specific to residents?
It is campus-wide throughout all the academic buildings. Actually, it's in every building on our campus and the residence halls as well. And so they're typically located in areas closest to the exit, but still positioned in a way that students or faculty or staff have privacy so that no one else can see their temperature when scanned. And it's voluntary.
If others would, let's go ahead and use the chat. Comment on how temperature checks are being used on your campus, and whether or not they're being used. Because I don't know that all campuses are at that point. So I think that would be a great resource for folks to have is what does that look like kind of across the board. We have moved, this is great information from David Joseph in regards to face coverings. And so I'd encourage folks to take a look at that. Commented specifically also on guests visiting campus. And I will say that is something that we've had some conversations about internally. We're having some challenges navigating the guest piece, our campus guests. So I would be interested in seeing others share how you're handling guests and face coverings in your masking policies. And as you are sharing what you're doing, if you can comment what campus you're on, I think that would be a great resource to folks as well. Some folks are sharing that, but if others could add that, that would be great. All right, and then Novia, it looks like somebody asked about your touchless scanners. If you could comment, if you haven't yet, on your supplier, if you have that information, that would be great.
Yes, I'm actually sending off a text right now to our IT personnel to find out if they could share that information before our time is up so I could share it with the group.
Awesome. Thank you, Novia.
You're welcome.
All right, any other touchless products or equipment that folks would like to talk about? Cindy Spencer has shared they're using battery-powered hand sanitizing dispensers at building entrances. So another great option. Okay, so PPE. Let's talk about PPE because this came up as well as a question. What are you using? Are you providing any additional PPE than you have previously? So have you added to what is available to your staff? And what is the training looking like for that? Who can share on that topic? Okay, Joseph has shared that they're using the Tyvek suits, the 360 machines, face masks, and shields. So Joseph, I'm gonna, if you're willing to share some more, would you talk about when folks are using those different pieces? Is that when you're going into specific spaces, or those just being offered in general? Would you mind sharing a little more?
Mostly the Tyvek suits are used going into spaces that if a student had been quarantined or isolated, we use those, or anytime we're using the Clorox 360 machines, just because the way the sprayers are used and the chemical is dispensed.
Now, Joseph, I'm not familiar with the Clorox 360. Are those similar to the Hilliard C17s or the Kyvacs?
Yeah, they're similar to those. It's just the one that's just sprayed around. It's just you're spraying it like you do a fire extinguisher when you're taking it apart.
We have those as well at Hofstra University. I will try and share with everyone the link. Hofstra University actually put out it's a marketing tool communication tool, with our students. It's called Safe Start, and it literally answers what we hope every question that students and or parents will have, and it has small videos showing what our custodial staff are using to keep everyone safe. So I think it would be a good resource for other people to see how we're putting out that communication.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. Whitney Daly has shared some great information about what they're doing at Augustana in regards to guests in their public spaces. They're offering some disposable masks. And then it looks like in their residence halls, they've requested no outside guests. Only other on-campus students can visit. That's great information, Whitney. Thank you for sharing that. Whitney Daly shared, she also shared that first responders are wearing face shields when they respond to emergencies, when they're on call. Blaze, thank you for sharing what you guys are doing at Penn College with the plexiglass barriers. Do you have folks put plexiglass barriers at your front desks and in your central office? Maybe comment on that so folks can see what's happening there. Are folks having any issues getting PPE?
No.
Nubby is not. You're all good. Okay.
So far.
Good. So if there's a particular PPE item that you're having difficulty acquiring or procuring, if you want to put that in the chat, let's see if there's any resources among the group to help fill any gaps folks have. Great. Doug Carter has also shared some of their guide, their COVID-19 guide for fall 2020. That's great, Doug. Thank you for sharing that. So probably a lot of good pieces in there that we can all pull. Cindy shared that they're also not allowing outside guests in their space. Oh, great. And then Doug specified on page 20 of the guide at KU, that's kind of where there's a flow chart for students. That's a fantastic resource, Doug. Thank you. All right. Okay, well, let's see. We're going to keep going. Health and safety inspections. Folks have asked, what are folks doing in regards to health and safety inspections this fall, knowing that entering student spaces has to look different than it has in the past? So can I have some comments on that? Let's see if there's any familiar names on here that I can ask to share. Let's see. Has anybody decided not to do health and safety inspections this year?
Here at Augustana, we'll probably wait until our students head home at Thanksgiving time and then do those while students are away, and then send that information back to them starting in January when they return.
Great. So you're going to push those to winter break. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Cindy. And you're at Cotty College, is that right, Cindy? I hope I got that right. So yes, thank you. So Cindy Spencer has shared they're going to go ahead and do them, but hall staff is going to do them instead of student staff, and they will use PPE as they go in to do that. Lisa shared what they're doing there as well. Oh, great question, Joseph. So let's go ahead and just throw that in. So on your campus, if you're if you provide custodial services to your student spaces, student living spaces, I'm guessing maybe suite restroom cleaning, Joseph, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, if you provide those types of services, can students opt out?
So at Hofstra, we clean our suites. Typically, we would clean it once a semester, but obviously with COVID-19, we made the decision that we will be going into their spaces multiple times during the semester. And no, our students do not have the option to say we cannot enter.
Whitney, I see you're shaking your head. So are you also not allowing the opt-out?
I was just taking it all in. We mostly have common spaces. So our student rooms, we don't typically service, but we are looking at some options for getting trash out of the building in a safer way so that we can protect our custodial team. And then we do have our custodians will be doing disinfecting in all of our common areas. And then we were just talking to our housing team about how we can add COVID precautions to the roommate agreement. So the spaces that we don't go in, students can decide how they want those cleaned and disinfected between those that are living there.
That's great. So, oops, sorry. I get so excited. Okay. So Robert, thank you for sharing that. They're reducing their health and safety inspections to 1 per semester. Cindy's also shared that students cannot opt out either. And so it looks like folks are, there's a lot of alignment among our campuses in how we're handling that. I want to make sure I'm watching our time and getting through some of these different topics. So folks also ask about what precautions folks are taking for move-in and arrival. So I'll start with a little bit on our campus. Our athletes came back for voluntary workouts in June, and they did receive, they were tested. All the athletes that came back were tested. In regards to move-in, one of the biggest shifts for us is that we're beginning move-in a week earlier than normal. And we typically have what we call bear crew, which are volunteers that help folks move in, and we do it over a condensed 3-day period. It's going to be 2 weeks this year instead. We're not going to have bear crew, and instead we'll have a centralized check-in. And the intent is that we'll have 10 students per building per hour moving in. So that is a big shift from us. For us. So can others share what they're doing?
Yeah, Teresa, this is Doug Carter at KU. We have decided that we are going to, we've communicated to the students that our move-in plan is going to start on August 7th. And we are actually having people that live, I'm not sure what the distance is, but people that live like within 100 miles are going to move their belongings in. And while they are here moving their belongings in, we're actually going to do a saliva test on all those students. And we have a lab in Lenexa that is going to turn those around within 24 hours. And so as the students go back to their homes, if they test positive, they'll quarantine at home for 2 weeks before they return. And then our normal like 3-day move-in process is being stretched out from like August 17th to the 24th to do exactly what you talked about and have fewer people moving in at scheduled times. So a lot different than previous years.
Yeah, that's a lot different. So Leanne, do you want to talk any more about what you guys are doing on your campus?
I sure can. It's been complicated. I'm just looking at the other comments, and it looks like, well, we have early arrivals other than athletes. So we have sorority recruitment, and we have some learning communities that come early, and marching band comes early. So everybody's adjusted their time 12 times over now. But athlete, our season, it's been fun. Our season is now starting. Well, the fall athletic season has been a delayed start. So none of the athletes need to come in early. So they just fall in the regular student category. So we've got a move-in materials ready to go. It's going to be mailed out next week. That talks about COVID expectations. We're going to sanitize checkout carts in between. And that's why we're staggering them every 30 minutes. And so far so good, I guess, other than all the changes.
Are you doing any testing tied to your move-in?
Not tied to move-in, although we are going to be in what's called phase 1. So the most restrictive procedures and protocols through 2 weeks past the first day of school, because all the people are converging together. So at a minimum, we'll be there through Labor Day for us, was that would be, and then it'll be evaluated based on virus cases and those kind of things. So when school starts for us on the 24th, the university is planning to do testing, but it's not coinciding with move-in.
Okay. And Leanne, what campus are you at?
I'm University of Nebraska at Kearney.
Okay, great. It sounds like you've been very busy.
Very.
Putting those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah.
Let's see. Chad has also shared they're doing something centralized as well, so that there's some good information there on that. Lots of great stuff there. Okay, let me check her. Okay, we're doing well on time. Oh, any other questions? Does anybody have any questions specifically about something related to move-in? Like, is anybody doing this? I want to make sure we're making the best use of time here, and we use all these experts in the room.
I just had a question. I saw that, I'm sorry, I looked through the chat, but someone indicated that their students were checking into their arena. We're also having all our students first go to our Mac Arena to check in. Is anyone else who's doing a centralized check-in, having all their building keys brought to that centralized check-in? Our students, once they go to the arena, they first get tested. And once they get tested, they're then allowed to receive keys to go to isolation housing. So I'm curious if anybody else is doing that.
Hi, Novia. This is Chad from Penn State. That was one of ours. Yeah, so we check in at our arena that's across the street from the stadium called the Bryce Jordan Center. And at that location, we do bring all of our keys. We're not an electronic key campus. We have all hard keys. So we do bring all of the check-in packets along with the hard keys to that centralized check-in. And then actually, we're only in that centralized check-in from 8 o'clock to 6 p.m. And then the keys go back to their areas within an hour. And then some of the evening check-ins continue in their home areas, but mostly it's centralized check-in with hard keys.
Are you having a heart attack like I am that the keys are out of the buildings?
We've actually, this has been our, other than the scheduled portion and the extended number of days, we normally do this.
Wow.
It's our standard practice, but it's usually only Thursday, Friday, and Saturday as opposed to 6 days is what we're planning this year.
Great, thank you.
So Chad, I could see Novia's stress, and I think she expressed it. Like, I feel you, Novia. Like, I'll lose my keys. But Chad, can you talk about that? Do you have a lot of lost in transportation keys? If we can put Novia's mind at ease, or affirm she's right to be stressed and maybe has to.
So no, we typically there are no lost keys in this process. Every student arriving has a check-in packet, and so keys are preloaded into these check-in packets prior to the arrival period, and then they're in these very large sorting bins organized alphabetically. And so by desk, we have 14 to 15,000 students that check in, and they're spread across 6 different central desks across campus. And so we pull from each 6 of those. It takes like 2 or 3 vans for us to get it from one side of campus to the other, but it's a pretty well organized process. And the way the keys go into the packets, it works out pretty well. The only problem we typically run into is if we accidentally put a wrong key in a wrong packet and the student goes to the room and can't get in. But not lost keys, just misplaced in the wrong packet kind of keys.
So the difference is that we're not putting them in packets. They're literally in a key box, just on a tag. And so I think that's why I'm having palpitations. That keys may get lost, but you have given me a new idea that maybe I can get done before the 4th.
You're swimming in time.
Sure.
Swimming, okay. So Leanne, thank you for sharing. They're doing some welcome envelopes that have a mask, a lanyard, their room key, and some other things. That's great. So another support to a way to approach move-in. So thank you for that. And it looks like Jamaica, you're doing the same thing as well? Yeah. Anything you want to add on your process?
No, that's pretty much what we're doing. We're doing the same thing as Leanne, but we're just working through all of it. And you did get my name right too.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, so we have talked about this, I think, a couple of times, but it has come up again because I think we have some different group folks in the room today. Entering student spaces. Our folks entering student rooms to do corrective maintenance work orders or other types of things, and what does that look like? Are students in the room? Are you scheduling that time? Are you wearing PPE and they're wearing PPE? Who wants to speak to that? Who's willing to share?
I can tell you that at Hofstra, we are, our staff, once a student puts in a work request, we will be responding via email to let them know when we intend to come into their rooms. We will let them know if they are going to be in their space that they will be required to wear a mask. Anyone entering their room, custodial or Teamsters, all have to wear masks, and some will be in different types of clothing, extra protective layer of clothing, depending on the type of work that they're going to students' room to do. But it would be, we recognize that it would be best if we did it by appointment, and that students know that they don't have to be there, but if they are intending to be there, they must wear their masks once we enter their space.
So Novia, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're telling the students when you're going to be there versus trying to work with their schedule and your schedule. It's just, here's when we're going to be there.
That is correct, because depending on what the issue is, in the fall, some of our buildings are very old and are prone to having leaks during heavy showers. And so if it's an emergency, we can't wait. So we have to enter a room, and so we will just let them know that we're coming, and that if they intend to be there, they can certainly stay, but they have to have masks on.
Great, thank you. There's a question that's come up for those that have keyless entry. How are you handling move-in? I don't have keyless, so I can't speak to this. Who has keyless that can help? Elisa? Anyone else have keyless? Well, how about this? If you have keyless entry, if you would post your name maybe in the chat so that you and Elisa could connect offline. Because I want to make sure if we can get folks connected to help each other out, we can do that. And you may not want to talk about it today in the whole group, but if you can share, hey, Elisa, I would love to help you with that and talk to you about that. Please put that in the chat. And hopefully, Elisa, hopefully we'll get someone who can connect with you on that. All right, isolation. I can't see my screen. Isolation and quarantine spaces. What are folks doing in this area? I think some of the different questions that have come up is, how are you providing services in those spaces? What are you doing for meal deliveries? What if you have emergency maintenance that needs to happen, or something with your custodial team? What have folks put together in your procedures, or what are you envisioning? And I got nothing on this, so this is the point where we're like the round table together. So who can share?
At Eastern Washington University, we have a building set aside for isolation and quarantine. We just walked through with our regional health district, and at this point, we're thinking the north side will be quarantine, the south side would be isolation. All of our facilities teams have what the regional health district has determined to be appropriate PPE should they have to go in. Custodial will go in, masked, booties, gloves, that sort of situation. And our maintenance staff has started coming up with what their PPE would be back in like March, because they knew we've been planning on that building for a while. We do have a suite style building that, depending on numbers, we might change to be for quarantine unless we need it for residential occupancy.
Thank you, Michelle. So if folks have some specific questions for Michelle, please feel free to use the chat for that. It sounds like Michelle and her group are well on their way to, they have a plan for that. So yeah, so you're our expert today.
Well, every minute we have a plan, something changes, but we feel good yesterday.
Okay. Hey, not everybody has that, so. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Appreciate that. Oh, great question from Chad. Does anyone have a specific percentage of your student body that that you've prepared isolation spaces for? So is it 10%, 7%? Michelle, do you know for your campus? Is there a percentage?
We are prepared for 10 to 15%, depending on if we double up in isolation. Though our plan is to use single occupancy if we can. What we were told is we should prepare for about 10%.
Do others have percentages that you're working with? So Michelle is working with a 10% number for isolation spaces. What about others?
At Hofstra, it's also around 10%.
Okay.
We have a 10% quarantine spaces, but we also allocated for hotel spaces outside of campus.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like a number of folks are working with 10%. We are prepared with, we're doing a lot of privates, but we have about 76 beds because we just took a building, we designated a building, and we're working also like Joseph to have a backup plan of some hotel spaces if we were to get to that point. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. So Bart has a question in the chat for everyone. Some campuses are planning 5 to 10% space. We're assuming the infection rates get above 2 to 3%, the campuses will be closed. Can anyone share what they're using all this space for? Will campuses be open with 10% of students infected? So thoughts on that question that Bart has posed?
Hey, Bart, this is Chad from Penn State. And since I asked the other question about percentage, our isolation spaces are a really low percentage as well of our total student population. We're targeting probably no higher than 4%. We have 400 isolation spaces identified right now, which is private rooms with private bathrooms. We were going to use a hotel for it, but we're going to use the hotel as residential space to give up this stuff. But that is exactly part of our fear as well, is that once we hit that high of a number, we're done. It's not set in stone, but I think a lot of folks are leaning that way. And I guess another tie-in question is we have a typical student population of undergrads around 40,000 at our campus, and we only house 15,000. Are other people expected to also house your off-campus students for isolation?
So folks can respond to the question that Chad has presented. Are you within housing expected to house off-campus students that need to be isolated? Is that correct, Chad?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah. So the Chad on our campus, I can say potentially. There's additional conversations happening on that subject. But it appears that the philosophy and the lean is that we would if the space allowed. It's like Doug might be in the same place. Haven't landed on a decision yet, but much like us, that decision it's gonna land beyond our housing department. Joseph has shared they're not going to. You have to have a contract with housing, but there are still conversations ongoing. That's probably a real key piece to it as well. If you're going to have those folks with you, what kind of agreement would there be? Yeah. Great. So if folks can continue to keep the comments coming in on that question that Chad has asked, that would be great. I think that's a nice one to have a feel for what other campuses are doing as we continue to have those conversations on our own campuses. Okay, so staffing. Staffing levels, there were some questions that came in to see where folks felt they were going to be with their staffing levels for their custodial staff. If there might be some possibilities for additional staffing. So I'm going to, I will say that we are not selective hiring freeze right now. So you've got to go through a lot more approvals right now to hire for us, but we have had the opportunity to prioritize our custodial positions. So we're seeing more movement in that area than in other positions for us. So if folks want to talk about where you're at staffing wise.
Here on our campus, we're deemed essential, so that process gets streamlined real fast when we run out of when our staffing levels run low. But for any additional ones, we'd have to go through a strenuous process.
One of the questions, I think I've got it on a different slide later on, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out now. One of the things that folks had commented on is, what are you doing for off hours, right? So we've talked in previous meetings that we're doing some additional disinfecting in common areas and restrooms, but what about those times when you're staffing there? Like, what are you doing on weekends for disinfection? What are you doing in the evenings for disinfection? So can folks talk about that? So Doug's commented they're going to do some contracting on that because of their own low staffing levels. So if folks can comment how you're handling a 24-hour operation when if you don't have a 24-hour crew, that would be helpful. Okay, Novia's got an evening custodial crew that will continue. Is your evening crew the same size as your day crew, Novia?
No, they're scaled back. They're about, I would say, 10 or 15 people less than what you would find on a normal day crew, but they are there at night for any emergencies, and so they'll be taking on those responsibilities. On the weekends, we do have custodial that are typically on. Right now, it should stay at our normal capacity, but I understand that they are looking at their budget as well to see where they may be able to scale back.
If folks will continue to use that chat, I'm going to keep our slides moving because we are in our very last few minutes. So I will likely run through these pretty quick, and then folks can use the chat so that can be available to folks. Let's see, staff support, maintenance, custodial, and staff members at increased risk. That is a big one. I've seen some different things happening. So if you have staff that are in an at-risk category, what kind of support is available for them based on just how you're approaching it as a department or through your human resources or equity and compliance office. I've seen some different things on different industry. So if you would comment if there's some specific or special things you're doing for staff support, that would be great, especially those folks who fall in that at-risk category in light of the essential work that we do. If folks could share there. We talked about the after-hour and weekend coverage. Building systems. Folks have been asking like what kind of HVAC prep folks are doing on their campus. So if you could jump in the chat and share some things. I know folks have shared the last couple of months some different things they're doing in relation to flushing systems that have been down for a while prior to occupancy, testing in those areas prior to occupancy as well. I know we've switched a number of our filters out prior to occupancy, and we're in the process right now of working with the city to do some wastewater testing so that we can look for trends in that area. All right, move it back to the chat. See what we've got in here. Oh, great, Leanne. That's a great comment. They're going to have, for those that don't have full-time staffing available on evenings and weekends, Leanne shared they're going to hire a student custodial crew for weekends to get those high touch points. That's great. Whitney shared they're going to hire some additional staff. Oh, Tracy shared another great comment. They're going to provide some additional cleaning products for student use. So some self-service is also a great way to handle some things. Thank you, Tracy. Joseph. I'm sorry. Joseph, he only has a day crew, but he's been directed to find mystery people with mystery funds to support their work. So Joseph, I know we would all love to hear how you do that. If you're able, you're going to be quite popular, and that is going to be the roundtable of the future.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find something at the bottom line. I think I'll go and do like the president sometimes, or our president, and go find some rich donors who can supply some of that.
Doug said you have a magic money drawer.
Yeah, I have to find it somehow.
Oh, Novia, that's great. You're going to provide some additional cleaning supplies in the bathrooms for the students. That's a great suggestion for folks. Okay, so we're at 2:57, and I really had told folks we're going to talk about best practices for opening a new residence hall. We have 3 minutes for that. So we don't have a lot of great time, but for a lot of time, it's been a great time, but we don't have a lot of time. But are there any specific questions that folks had on that topic? Or I know Doug Carter, you are on the call today and you're an expert at everything. So maybe Doug, you could wrap us up with like a couple of your recommendations or best practices that you have on that topic.
Well, you would think I would have been prepared for that segue, but I am immersed in the COVID-19 planning.
Or any lessons learned.
Well, I think lessons learned would be a lot of upfront time on FFE delivery and coordinating that with your general contractor. Punch list items, I would be careful to assume that your engineering support folks caught everything. As professionals, we need to be the second set of eyes or the third that make sure that things are going the way that we thought they were going. I would do a great job of documentation. A lot of times when we do punch list items on a residence hall, that's such a big undertaking that you may get a lot of the larger things, but it will take some repeat going back again and again to make sure that you follow up on all those things. Don't be afraid to hold people accountable, even if they are not able. If you're moving people in August 24th and you don't have all the punch list items done on August 23rd, then that just means that they're going to be coming back with the kids there. So I don't think that it was super helpful, Teresa. I apologize that I wasn't more prepared.
No. No, you have shared great things today, but the important thing is that folks know. I know Joseph Thomas has shared; he's got great experience in that area. You do as well. So I just want to make sure that folks know there's great resources available to them. So if that's something that's important to you, please be aware of that. So I'm going to go ahead and just make note. I can't see my screen. Sorry. If you would like to make sure that you're on our mailing list, please email Jill Gotti. We also have a form you can fill out to share if there's a specific group that you'd like to work with. Our next meeting will be in August. We meet the third Monday of each month. If that changes, we'll make sure that folks know. And then I will work with Spencer so we can get this chat out to folks because there's a lot of great information in the chat. thank you guys so much. A reminder of the additional roundtables and the resources available online. I appreciate you. If we can support you in any way beyond this call, please do let us know, and make note of the great resources of the folks that have shared today. So thank you all. Happy Monday, and we will talk again soon.